Well, the buyout market officially ended, with the playoff eligibility deadline being on March 1st, and meaning a player that's not waived yet is not playoff eligible for a different team even if they are waived after that point. That likely rules out that option for a number of teams, including the Lakers. Even if they would waive somebody, that maybe being a guy like Cam Reddish and or Alex Len, which we'll talk more about in a bit here, they very likely won't be replacing them with a currently available free agent. I mean, the current market's very dry at this point and not much came through the buyout market. So if you ask me, the much more likely route for them to take here is actually replacing it with a guy in their current team, albeit an extension of their roster, and that being a two-way player for them, either being a guy like Goodwin and or Trey Jemison. And yes, they do have the ability to sign both of them. If they waive two players, then they do have enough financial flexibility to make that happen. They're about $700K below the second apron, and they definitely do want to stay below that, meaning they could waive both of them and sign a two-way guy like Goodwin and or Trey Jemison, elevating them from that two-way contract to a standard contract for only about $300K at this point, even less if they would wait another week or two, and then promote them to their 15-man roster. So yes, they do have the ability to do it, but the real question is, who should they waive to make it happen, or should they waive anybody to make that happen? Maybe a guy like Cam Reddish, maybe Alex Len, maybe Markieff Morris, or maybe even Milton. 4 options to pick from, and definitely varying opinions on which one they should pick, if any of them, to then replace them with Goodwin and or Trey Jemison. So we're going to talk about it, the best option in my opinion to waive, who would make the most sense to waive, both from a contractual standpoint, a production standpoint, and both a short-term and long-term standpoint as well. But before we get too far into it, let's go over our game day picks with Underdog Fantasy. And if you're a new sign-up, you can pick LeBron to have higher than 0.5 points later tonight. So yeah, take advantage of that free pick. But then for my picks, for pick number 1, I got Dorian Finney-Smith having higher than 0.5 rebounds during the first quarter. Now in their starting lineup, or at least temporarily, he'll have much more opportunity to get that and has had that in at least 3 straight games now. Then for my second pick, I got Luka Doncic having higher than 1.5 assists during the first quarter, averaging 2.8 assists during the first quarter in their past 5 games now, so I would say the odds are in his favor here. Then for my third and final pick, I got Bol having higher than 0.5 assists. He's had that in 5 straight games now, so hopefully one more for good luck. But if you're looking to make your own picks or follow along with me, then be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy, and don't forget to use code JSM to get your free pick, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make a deposit. But now getting back to our topic, and like I mentioned, the 4 primary options to be waived from their team are number 1, Cam Reddish, number 2, Alex Len, number 3, Markieff Morris, and number 4, Milton. Everyone besides them doesn't really make sense to be waived. I mean, take a guy like Maxi Kleber for example. I've seen some people mentioning him, and from the possibility that he might not make it back this season, despite some recent optimism that he actually will make it back, but even with that, even if he wouldn't make it back this season, it's still not a good option. He's under contract for not only this season, but then the one after this one, and the one after that one as well. 2 years remaining on that contract, and if you would waive him right now, that would leave quite a bit of dead money on their cap sheet, which they probably don't want to have for nothing. And besides him, nobody else really makes sense to be waived I mentioned, so beginning with Milton, probably the least likely option to be waived in my opinion, both from the fact that he's actually been in and out of their rotation, so they do kind of rely on him when they have injuries, and much like their last game when Austin Reeves didn't play, and then from the fact that much like Maxi Kleber, he is under contract beyond this season. Now unlike Maxi Kleber, his contract is completely non-guaranteed, so if they wanted to, they could treat it like an expiring contract, but from the other side of that, they could treat that contract in a trade like an expiring contract and make it much more valuable than simply waiving it for nothing. You know, with the new CBA and all the trade rules that come with it, a salary worth between 2 to 3 million, much like Milton's, can make the difference between being able to make a trade or not being able to make a trade. So from that standpoint, probably want to keep him at least until this offseason. Then if they want to, they could waive him in order to sign a different free agent if that small amount of cap space would help them, and not really cap space but simply a second apron relief, or combine him with a different player through a trade. They probably want to hold on to that and not waive him for nothing right now. Then after Milton, I would call Alex Len the second least likely to be waived from their team. You know, you might not like to hear it, but at the end of the day here, he's only been with their team for about 2 to 3 weeks at this point and only played 2 games with their team. Obviously didn't play very well in them and probably doesn't have much left in the tank at this point. Definitely a very matchup dependent player and a guy that can only help in very specific matchups and certain times in the court. But at the end of the day here again, they did just sign him. It would look pretty weird for them to sign him and then immediately waive him thereafter, especially after the playoff eligibility deadline. That probably wouldn't be a good look for their team. Other veteran free agents see that and say, well, if they didn't honor that contract with him, why should I sign with them and expect them to honor my contract? You know, it might take a year or two, but it might eventually come back to haunt them. They probably don't want to take that risk simply to waive Alex Len and sign a different player over him, whether it be Trey Jemison or somebody on the open market. Probably not worth it at this point, and even if it's a slight risk that might come back to haunt them, I probably wouldn't take that risk. And you know, with Alex Len again, has only played 2 games for them, I'd like to think that he'll eventually get one more opportunity and hopefully play well in that opportunity. Might be wishful thinking at this point, but at the bare minimum, not the worst depth piece for their team. You know, I definitely do have him behind both Trey Jemison and even Christian Koloko at this point, but say they don't convert them to a standard contract, therefore they won't be playoff eligible, or one or both of them would get hurt. Hopefully not, but you never know, I guess. Then I guess Alex Len might be able to come in handy. Definitely again only during very specific matchups, but hey, I guess you never know. But after Alex Len and Shake Milton, I'd call Markieff Morris the third most likely to be waived by them. You know, definitely a good option if you're simply looking to waive an expiring contract and no money on their contract after that point, and a guy that doesn't really play for their team. That's the case for both Markieff Morris and Cam Reddish, so they could go that route, but he does happen to be a good veteran leader for their team, not expecting to play and simply happy to be there at this point. He won a championship with their team back in 2020, so does have a good former and current relationship with their team. You know, friends with Luka Doncic on top of that, was part of the trade with Luka Doncic, has chemistry with him, and Luka Doncic does appear to like him, so maybe a guy they want to stick around from that standpoint. Again, they definitely could go that route, especially if they're looking to waive not only one, but 2 guys and then sign both Jordan Goodwin and Trey Jemison. Then yes, I would unfortunately look to waive Markieff Morris, but apart from that, I would put him slightly ahead of Cam Reddish from being waived. And then for why I think Cam Reddish is the most likely to be waived from their team, no, not from a production or what he can do on the court standpoint, or not fully anyways. If we're talking about offense, then yes, kind of. Simply a very unreliable 3-point shooter, only shooting about 28% from 3 this season, and that's very likely why he's not in the rotation. I mean, with a guy like JJ Redick and simply playing with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and other playmakers on the court, and in their scheme and simply the offense they'd like to run, you gotta be at least a fairly reliable 3-point shooter, and Cam Reddish has not proven to be that for them. And then defensively, well, yes, he can be an asset. The unfortunate thing with Cam Reddish is that it seems like every 5 to 10 games that he plays and is in the rotation, he gets hurt after that point. Simply not very durable and can't be relied on, neither offensively or from a durability standpoint, and that kind of leaves him as a guy that you don't really want to rely on. Then with a number of other guys ahead of him within the rotation, you know, not only Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura who are very far ahead of him, but then guys like Dalton Knecht, Jared Vanderbilt, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jordan Goodwin, and even Shake Milton. There are so many guys ahead of him and he's kind of an afterthought at this point. You know, again, I think he can offer something on the court, mainly being on defense, and he has shown good moments at times. But if we're talking about the best combination of a guy to be waived from their team, from a contractual standpoint, having no guaranteed money left on his contract after this season, check. From a rotation standpoint and not currently playing within it, check. And then from a reliability standpoint, both from a 3-point shooting and offensive standpoint, or from a durability and ability to remain on the court, check. So hate to say it for Cam, but he probably is in that #1 spot to be waived from their team. Definitely a toss-up between him and Markieff Morris, and well, if they go the route of waiving 2 players and not only one, then they probably will both be waived. They definitely want to get Jordan Goodwin there, currently not being playoff eligible due to being a 2-way contract, so I think it's only a matter of time before they waive somebody like the Cam Reddish or Markieff Morris, but I think it'll happen, whether it's in 1 week, 2 weeks, they really don't have to rush at this point. Goodwin will be playoff eligible as soon as they make room for him. With him being on a 2-way contract, he can be converted and still be playoff eligible at that point. So I think it's pretty much a guarantee they do it, but they gotta pick out who they'll waive first. If they're only making room for him, then only waive Reddish or Markieff Morris, but if they're making room for Goodwin and Trey Jemison, then they gotta waive both of them. And with that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the option of waiving somebody from their team and then making room for Jordan Goodwin and or Trey Jemison? And who do you pick to waive from their team first? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.